Let's go.
I'll go ahead and call to order this regular scheduled meeting of the Nelson County Board of Education on June 16th, 2015 at approximately 5:01 p.m. First thing we will do is Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Nelson County Schools Board Mission Statement. The Nelson County Board of Education, representatives of our citizens and entrusted with their children, pledges to support the mission of the Nelson County School District by setting visionary direction through effective policy, oversight, and efficient resource management. The district vision statement, quality education now, learning for life. Item 2 on the agenda is any changes to the agenda.
No, sir, we do not.
Okay, so item 3, which is student and stakeholder engagement. 3A, student performance.
We do, and I'm going to ask Ms. Penny Bradley, principal at Horizons, to introduce her student who we were talking before. I didn't really think of this so much as a performance this time, but she's already got that mentality. She's on it.
This is Ashley Smith, and Ashley was a student at Horizons this year, and she's just going to share, she's really shy, as you can tell. She's just going to share a little bit about what led her to Horizons and some things that she did while she was there.
Good evening. My name is Ashley Smith, and I transferred from Nelson County to Horizons after Christmas break of my sophomore year, due to personal issues, of course. I got behind while attending Nelson County, so I wanted to go to a smaller environment to catch up on my classes. The students and staff made me feel very welcome and comfortable, and there were a lot of students there at Horizons that were there for similar reasons I was. So they were all very supportive. The teachers were extremely helpful when it came to getting all my work done on time. And there was a few things that I did this past semester, and most of them took place in my project group, which is public relations. And we go out and work with the public, the community, and for example, like something we did this year was about 5 students, including me, went to 3 different elementary schools, Boston, New Haven, and Bloomfield, and we had a bullying lesson where we talked to the kids about what bullying really is. We came up with the lesson, and we split up the parts, and we just like really explain to them what it means to be bullied and what you should do in that situation. And that really helped me develop my leadership skills. So like it'd be easier for me to come here and talk to all of you. Overall, Horizons really changed my life because I was in a dark hole, I felt like, and they pulled me out. And without Horizons, I wouldn't be where I am right now. So thank you all for having me here today, and without you, none of this would have been possible. Thank you.
What's your next plan?
I have half a semester of 2 classes, and that was due to Apex issues. Because like the Algebra 2, like there was pop-ups that you'd have to see in order to do the work, and they wouldn't work for me. Which we had technology go over many times trying to fix the problem, but you know, that's how that goes. So I'm either I probably would go to Horizons for about 2 periods, and then go back to Nelson County to get back on track with everything. But those 2 periods are to catch up on the half semesters that I didn't finish.
When you graduate?
I'm a junior.
You're a
this year.
junior.
She'll be a junior.
She'll be a junior, okay.
Do you have some future plans yet that you've kind of thought about? something maybe you want to do, or?
Four-year college, and I want to be a psychiatrist.
Nice goal.
You go for it.
Turn, you can do it.
Thank you.
And she's gonna come back and treat her principal.
Can I be your first subject?
Just remember, when you're abusing her, that you may have to come back and fix what you did, so.
Exactly.
3B, good news, Mr. Wolf?
We do have some to share. Thank you very much, Ms. Smith, for being here. We appreciate
Glad to hear the stories.
Thank you.
it's, we appreciate that there's a structure there and a school there that comes from the decision-making of the board, but you are where you are because of what you have invested in that, and that will continue to be true. So don't sell yourself short on that point. So we have some other good news to share, and we're kind of abbreviated in the summer months in some of what we do, so this will be very brief, and we have just a few schools. The Boston School, if you didn't know, was awarded $1,000 from Academic Edge earlier this spring for winning the statewide contest for usage throughout the school year. They had more of their students make more progress than any other school in the state. And so we're excited about that, but we're even more excited about what that means for student learning in that building and how that helps prepare those students. From Horizons, as a matter of fact, we had 14 seniors graduate this year. 2 more will earn their diplomas during summer school. There were 339 APEX courses completed, which equals 169.5 credits. At Thomas Nelson, the yearbook team placed 3rd in the state in Class 2A for their 14-15 yearbook entitled Generation Next. The FFA chapter was named the top 15 chapter in Kentucky. During the recent state convention, they placed 1st in job interviews, 2nd in food science, 2nd in ag processing proficiency, and 3rd in small animal impromptu, a great convention. And just, I'm kind of combining all of our high schools together to say that we've seen the preliminary numbers for college and career readiness data for the year for Nelson County, Thomas Nelson, and our area technical center. We're really excited. We aren't comfortable giving out the data yet, but we're really excited about what we see happening there and what that tells us we should expect to see when we get K-Prep data back in the fall. So we've got more good news on the way. So short.
Item 4 on the agenda, operations and consent. 4A, information, personnel actions. 4B, treasurer's report. C, bills and claims. D, munis report. D, leaves of absence. F, minutes from previous meeting. G, the overnight out-of-state trips. H, the fundraiser request. And I, the policies and procedures update. Just one clarification, policy and procedure update. Will that be second reading on those?
Second reading for those policies.
Second reading on those. All of these items were part of our board packet that was uploaded towards the end of last week, I believe. Motion by Mr. Pate.
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Breeding. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 5 on the agenda, efficient resource management. 5A, salary schedules and information.
At our work session on June the 4th, we spent quite a bit of time going through a lot of these things, but certainly we spent quite a bit of time on the salary schedules that night. Now, tonight's document is essentially unchanged from that night. I'll just remind you that it includes 2% cost of living increase in every cell in any schedule included as required by the legislature with the budget bill that was passed. That is in its second year of the biennium. Be glad to answer any questions anyone might have about the salary schedules, but I know we went into them pretty much detail. You know what I'm trying to say? On the 4th of June. So again, I'll be glad to try to answer any questions anyone might have.
I thought we talked in length about the substitute teaching schedule.
We did, I know Mr. Orr did some research on that, and I was under the impression that he had shared that with members of the board, and so we left it as is. I can tell you that he did share with me some cost, I think he did an analysis, and I think we'd be looking at about a $60,000 cost to the district if we were to.
That would catch it up to the highest comparison that we made.
Right.
Personally, that would be all right with me, I'm sorry, but I just don't think the scale is, I don't like it. I mean, that's the way I think.
I understand that totally. I will
Yeah.
just remind you though that we did
And
increase.
I'm not saying anything different than what I said
No, I know. Oh, you're absolutely
working
right.
session either.
Uh,
I just think they're worth more than that.
Just again, remind you that we did increase that last year. And we are, I think we have some other things on the agenda later on tonight that are money items to the board. And certainly you all make the decisions. We'll live whatever decision you make and make the best of it. But I'd like to do things gradually when we have an opportunity. We've got a 2% mandated raise that we're required to give folks this year. It's included in these schedules. But with the average step increase that your employees get, that's 3.45%. That's $20 million in general funds payroll. It's about $700,000. Certainly that wouldn't bankrupt us to make that change. I'm not saying it would, but I feel like we're already in somewhat of a hole, and personally would prefer to come back a year from now and look at that, possibly make that a priority if that were wishes of the board. But let's try to survive this year, see what this raise, how this raise impacts us. That would be my recommendation, but certainly we'll act.
And I think, I mean, one of the comments was made on legal review, Ms. Bree, at the work session. I'll paraphrase what I think I heard, that teachers aren't paid what they're worth. Something, yeah, that ought to be some of the highest paid people in jobs, and I think we all would agree that. And that kind of falls in line with what you're saying there, Ms. Berry, whenever it comes to substitutes, because any of us that have ever substituted in a classroom, I mean, it's a challenging job. But what I hear here is if we decide we raise something in one place, we got to find other places to take money away. So it is one of those balancing acts that we've got to deal with.
The thing I see about this is, if we don't invest in the teachers, what good is it doing for the students? Some of these, years ago, if you hired a substitute, they come in and babysit. That's not what it should be now. It should be, and I think if you have decent pay, then you'll get a decent substitute, better than a decent substitute. That's just, you know, that's just the way I feel. You get what you pay for.
No, that's a valid point.
Yep, get what you pay for.
So, do we want something to change in this salary schedule, or are we thinking that we kind of leave it as is? We see what the impact on the 2%
My
mandated
opinion
raise?
is leave it as is for the current year, just leave it as is. And then let's go back and let's look and see exactly if there even is a problem. I mean, you know, if there's an issue with the substitute teachers, if, you know, if it's a performance issue, I mean, let's look at it. You know, I think that stats will show that throwing money, you know, for performance is not necessarily the way to go. And so let's look at what the real problem is, and if there is a problem, before we decide to make any changes.
I don't know if you would say there's a problem. I just think I don't look at it as a problem. I look at it as somebody that's, is well qualified to be a substitute, and then they turn around and look at the scale and would say $70 for what you have to do. Really, I mean, I don't think there's an underlying problem other than the scale, other than the pay being low. Because I know people that won't even sub because of it, and they were great teachers. And that's my only thought, you know, I'm not apologizing for the way I feel about it, but I'm just saying, I'm sorry we're in the hole. If we feel like that we don't have the money to give these people an extra little money.
Well, like I said, $60,000 is not going to bankrupt the district, but when you stack it on all the other things that we know we've got to absorb this year, I just think it's after just increasing those rates just last year, pretty substantially. Sarah, I don't remember the exact number. I think for rank 5, we went from $63 to $70. Don't know if that's exactly right. That rings a bell.
That's
You know,
not a huge amount to me for this.
well, but when you multiply it
But
times
when
the
you
number of
multiply-
days, it does add up. I think we spent about $350,000. That's a rough number. You know, and we would be going roughly 400, 410 if we made the increase. So, you were saying, I'm sorry.
I think, Sarah, can you kind of give us just, I realize this is going to be a little bit intuitive, but what was the sense that you had? Did we, when we raised those amounts in the prior year, what we were looking to do was make sure that we were having a better success rate on filling our jobs. I mean, what's your sense of how well that worked? That would be my question.
Our jobs were filled for the most part. When we had major epidemics, when the flu hit, in the classrooms and the staff, we had trouble filling positions, but that was because of lack of people, you know.
Probably no amount of money would have
No,
made that.
I mean, we
No,
just-
there wouldn't have.
No,
Now, I think in the year prior, we had significant trouble on
We
a
did.
regular basis filling positions. So I understand and appreciate what you're saying, and obviously, like Tim said, we'll do whatever the board directs us to do. But in the end, what I wanted to be sure was that we had jobs filled. And when people have that choice, and I think most of our substitutes do have use some discrimination on when they accept jobs and when they don't, where they accept jobs and where they don't. And when we get to a point where we're getting our jobs filled pretty reliably, I feel like we're satisfying that need, and when you've got those other priorities in the budget that we're trying to take care of, I felt satisfied at that point. So that's where
I go along with Ms. Green over there because we just give them a raise. Let's see how it goes. If there's a problem next year, let's give it a raise. We can't just keep doing it and keep. There's only so much money. I think we need to go on with it the way it is.
So, is there a motion? Or
I'll make a motion that we accept the salary schedule and information.
Okay, so a motion by Mr. Pate to accept the salary schedule as it's presented, and a second by Ms. Breeding. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Let me say, the only reason why I will vote for this then is because of what our budget constraints are, okay? Let that be known. That's the only reason why I'm gonna vote yes.
I agree with you, I mean, teachers need.
Teachers
or,
needed, substitutes needed, I don't care, that we
Yeah.
need to place some higher priority on
Yeah,
this.
yeah, and that's when our teachers are not paid enough.
No,
And I would
but
love to
these
see
are
more
definitely
training
not
and
paid enough
stuff.
for me.
Yeah, I understand.
Well, I would say that probably what you're saying there is what we would all add going again. Back to my paraphrasing or butchering, however you like to say it, the comment that you made at the work session, because I think we all would agree with that. So with all of our concerns about making sure that we can have quality paying positions for
We can
both
open
our
this up.
regular staff
Yes,
as
we
well as
can
our
open it up
subs.
next year.
Yeah, it sounds like that we did a 5-0 vote, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so, and opposed would be nay then, so. Okay, thank you. So we'll move on then to 5B, which is workers' comp insurance selection.
And as we discussed on the 4th, we're recommending that you renew with Kentucky Employers Mutual Insurance, KEMI. Our premium for fiscal 15 was $118,092. Premium, net effective premium for fiscal 16 is going to be $121,591.19, essentially the same premium. And that's on 3.5% more salaries, because we're estimating for that premium that increased salary cost we just talked about. So it's essentially the rates dropping slightly, the same premium for your workers' comp coverage essentially for fiscal 16. Again, that's with KEMI. I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Possibly just similar, is this the one that we had discussions about, that we joined the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce?
Yes.
So we've also got that added benefit of knowing that we get some discounts on the overall policy cost, but now we also have membership within the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce.
We belong to the Kentucky Chamber now, and there may be some benefit to us in addition to that 10% discount that's reflected in that quote I gave you. Would have been about $135 for your workers' comp. And, you know, part of the deal with your workers' comp carrier, you develop a relationship with those folks, because when folks are injured, Sarah's staff, Sarah works directly with those folks, try to make sure we get those people to the right doctors, get them back to work as soon as possible. We reduce costs, we lower premiums in the future. So having a relationship as much as possible with those carriers is certainly beneficial to the district, and we've had a good relationship this past year. I think Sarah would agree with Keeney and the folks at USI that are our agent for that policy.
Any other questions? We have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by
Second.
Ms. Berry, second by Mr. Norman. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Going on to 5C, property liability insurance selection.
We are recommending to renew here with Liberty Mutual. I've been here since '98. We've been with Eugene Wilson and Company, which is now First Insurance Group, since '98. Before that, just about that entire time, we've been with either Ohio Casualty or later Liberty Mutual. We are recommending to renew with Liberty Mutual. Just a couple of highlights. Again, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. The premium is dropping about $3,200 from fiscal 15 to fiscal 16, and that's on around $7 million in higher property valuation. So we would recommend we stay with our current agents, our current carriers. You know, you develop relationships with those folks too, legal staff, claims agents, our local agent. I talked to Kathy Hunt earlier today. They've done a fantastic job for us for many, many years. We recommend that we stay with Liberty Mutual and First Insurance Group for fiscal 16.
Questions? Motion by Ms. Berry,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Still on the insurance thinking. 5D, student accident insurance list.
Student insurance, we've been providing that for as long as I can remember. Years and years ago, we provided it only on athletes. We had insurance with Scholastic Insurers a long time ago, at least 10 years ago, probably longer than that now. I can't remember exactly when we started with K&K Insurance and Bob Roberts Insurance Agency in Richmond, Kentucky, providing insurance to all of our students. The school board at that time decided they wanted to provide insurance for all students. There were a lot of students at that time. The view was there was a lot of students in the district that didn't have health insurance, and they wanted to provide that safety net, and we've been doing it ever since. But the premium's been going up ever since as well. The first year, if I recall correctly, I may not have this number exactly right, but the way I remember it was $27,000. Again, that was several years ago. To keep that current coverage, or that same coverage, in fiscal 16, it'd be $92,638.76. We are recommending that we continue to insure all students for fiscal 16, just like we've done for many years, but to tweak the coverage and provide a scheduled policy which limits the reimbursement to parents. Currently, we're paying usual and customary charges. You go to the hospital, usual and customary, you all know how health insurance works, I assume. We're going to a scheduled plan which will reduce our cost, and the quoted premium for that is $67,402.10. Now, that's more we're paying this year. If we kept the current policy that we paid $61,155 for this fiscal year, if we kept that same policy next year, it would be $92,638.76. It's about 75% of what our work comp policy would be on $20 million of employees, actually more than that. Our recommendation is that you keep covering all students, but that you go to a scheduled policy to try to keep some control over the cost of that insurance so we can continue to provide it. And we're recommending you award that to Bob Roberts as the agent, and to Liberty Mutual, actually, as the carrier for that. Be glad to try to answer any questions you might have.
You would think with the mandatory health insurance, that insurance would start dropping eventually. Where it was, nobody had to have insurance. Now, it's getting mandatory, but it's still going up.
Well, there's been a lot of conversation on, I don't know if Damon is KDE email there, if you've seen any of it or not. Certainly, I've seen a lot of traffic on, do we need to keep this stuff now? Supposedly, everybody has coverage now. And you can't get a straight answer. The word is there's still folks that are uninsured, still gaps in coverage, and this is secondary insurance. So if your child or anyone who's here, their child is hurt in a ball game or slips on a school bus, or I talked to a mom today, just today, she came into my office today, whose child on field day at Cox's Creek fell off the monkey bars. Okay, we talked about the monkey bars on June 4th, remember that? Well, the monkey bars are pretty, they cost us a lot of money. And this child fell off the monkey bars, and we directed her today as to what she needs to do to pursue that deductible recovery that she'll get through this secondary insurance. It covers her deductibles, her co-pays, and it's primary if they don't have any coverage at all. But we can't get a straight answer, Mr. Pate, as to whether or not, I feel certain there'd still be some serious gaps. Certainly those gaps should be shrinking, and the day should come, hopefully soon, where we don't have to provide this for all students anymore. Now, we're required to provide it for athletes. For high school athletes, we're required to provide it. Just so you know, if we were to provide the same plan that I'm recommending for all students, just for athletes only, that coverage would cost you $56,000. So it's only costing $11,000 to cover the rest of our students in the district. And you'd be required to cover athletes. It's an $11,000 decision. Essentially, you are covering all students for all school-sponsored activities. If they're up here on Saturday and it's not a school-sponsored activity, it's not covered. If there's a fight on campus, that's not an accident. It's student accident coverage. But if they slip and fall, if they fall on the monkey bars or get hurt in a ball game, it covers those type of things.
But any of our other insurances don't cover those types of things?
I'm sorry?
Like property or,
We have liability insurance, and certainly if a child is injured due to our negligence, it trumps the student insurance, and it would pay at that point. But we have to be negligent.
This here, though, is just to provide some relief to that true accident. Could be the student walking down the hallway and twisting their ankle to where they rupture a tendon.
Right.
No sports, no fight, just the student can't walk and chew gum at the same time, so to speak.
Right, that's correct. But certainly, we have med pay as part of our liability policy that covers if the district's negligent in some way, child's not being supervised properly or something, and they're hurt as a result of that. That wouldn't go to student accident kind of coverage. It would stay on our liability policy.
And it's not to completely wipe away all of the deductible, as much as just to take away some of the sting of it.
Again, I think we ought to go with it, and next year, if the insurance is picking up, maybe we can back off a little.
something to look at differently.
So we would be looking at then the recommended insurance, which is the all-inclusive for all students. The Liberty Mutual one at $67,402.10. Am I saying the right one?
That's correct. That is correct.
So,
I'll make a motion.
motion by Ms. Breeding,
Second.
second by Ms. Berry. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 5E, I have a suspicion it's row 3 on the right side, the athletic trainer's contract.
All right. I did it for a long time, and I remember a long time ago seeing folks on the sideline at our football games when I first started going. Didn't know who they were, and pretty quickly figured out they were local trainers. They were our football trainers, and at that time there was no transfer of funds. They were just out there to provide a resource and support to the programs and so forth. And that went on for a long time. And then as time went on, it became apparent that we needed somebody every day, not just on Friday night. More and more kids participating. Growth at the high school for some time there was Nelson County High School. Got to where there were 1,700 students. There was a lot of kids participating, all sorts of activities. And at that point, we decided and entered into a contract to provide a trainer with with court. And significantly discounted rate, but we were paying them to provide a full-time trainer at Nelson County High School. Well, we had to change a lot of things to try to absorb the creation of 2 schools, because that's a big, that's a significant change to the district, and that was going to require 2 trainers, 1 at each school. We feel like it's twice as many teams on each side of town. We had all the same sports, so we felt like this is an opportunity to do something a little different. So at that time, we worked with Court. They partnered with Flagey Hospital, and Flagey subsidized that program for us at both high schools. And they've been doing this for the last 3 years. So we've been paying Court at a very discounted rate for each school to provide a trainer. The 2 trainers at our schools are back here. I can't remember their names, sorry guys. But you probably recognize them if you've been to athletic events at Nelson County and at Thomas Nelson. They're always there. There are a lot of those events. That's been going on for 3 years. So for the last 3 years, you've had a trainer at each one of your high schools at a lot of events. They can't be everywhere, but they're there all the time. It's something. It's been going on for the last 3 years at no cost to the district. Well, probably a month or so ago, we started to work on a renewal for that, and we have received 2 quotes for those services. Both of those quotes result in, again, no cost to the board. That's the good news. Our recommendation to you tonight is that we continue with folks from Court who are represented in row 3 over here on the right side of the room. The advantage to doing that is our folks and our schools, our coaches and our players will continue with the same folks they've gotten to know the last 3 years. And in the case of a fellow over here from Nelson County, I think you've been there longer than that, haven't you? I've been there longer than that. So, that's a comfort level for them. They're very happy with those folks, and to me that does provide them somewhat of an advantage. We did also receive a proposal from Flagey Hospital, which has been great to us for the last 3 years in helping fund the program in partnership with Court. The advantage that they don't have is they'd be bringing in new folks. Again, there's no net cost to the district with either program. We would win with either group, honestly. Both of them are very generous with the quotes they've provided you and the services they'll be providing. But I feel like the fact that these guys have been with us for 3 years, in some cases, in the Nelson County's case longer than that, it's in our best interest to continue with them. So that's our recommendation tonight.
Well, I'm of the mindset if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
And I know that Cody took care of mine for 4 years. And knew her knee problems after the first time, so that was always nice that he knew, okay, yep, she's got a weak knee there, so.
They took care of me.
Cody's not been there that long.
I don't think the miracle worked.
I will make a motion to accept this.
Okay.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Page to accept the Court proposal, second by Ms. Breeding. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank
We
all of
appreciate-
y'all.
yeah, appreciate the partnership that we've got there with you.
The kids appreciate it too.
I keep mustard packets in my gym bag because of you.
Is that for lunch or for some other
A
reason?
little of those. For me to like.
Moving
Right?
on to
I'm doing the right
5F.
thing, right?
5F, the 2015-2016 Central Kentucky Educational Cooperative, Kentucky Educational Development Cooperative, if I remember correctly, membership.
We've been members of both of these co-ops for many years, CKEC for a little longer. We receive services, benefits from both, and I feel like it's in our best interest to continue to belong to both. We'll make that recommendation to you tonight.
So these are the 2 educational cooperatives that, whether it's professional development, could be special needs, insight assistance for professional development. I know they also are purchasing cooperatives that allows us discounts on numerous items. I'm going to blanket it everything from toilet paper to technology.
KEDC's got an extensive bidding catalog. CKEC does as well. We get legal services at times. You all been in meetings where we've had CKEC special ed experts come in. It's on Ms. Powell, couldn't be here tonight, but she relies on CKEC a lot. So there are benefits to the district belonging to both.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Pate to do memberships in both of these educational cooperatives again.
Second.
Second by Mr. Norman. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 5G, the Family Resource Youth Service Center budget. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
I would like to recommend that you all approve the contract to accept the Family Resource and Youth Service Center grant for $299,375.10 total.
And this is simply based upon a dollar amount per student,
Free and
which is,
reduced lunch.
which is why we have different dollar amounts for each of these risk centers.
That is correct, yes.
Motion.
Motion by Ms. Berry,
Second.
second by Mr. Pate. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to item 5H, the Bardstown City Schools and Nelson County Schools non-resident student agreement.
This is something I get to talk about.
To you.
So, as I think everybody is aware, we've been actually working on this project, if you will, since back in December, and really had conversations about it for longer than that. But after several months of a lot of discussions and back and forth talks, I think we've got a good agreement to present to you today, and it accomplishes what I believe and understood this board to ask of us back when the conversation first started up back in 2014. And in that, it limits the number of students at Bardstown City Schools in future years. It narrows that gap between the number of out-of-district students in each school system. At the same time, I want to be very clear, it does not close it completely by any stretch of the imagination, but it does narrow that gap. I think it provides a high degree of transparency. The way we have the application process and the tracking of the students as they move from one district to another, the way we have that set up allows for us and Bardstown to monitor the same documents in live, real time, and so we'll be able to check things that we hear by looking online and making sure that we know exactly what's going on as much as possible. And I feel like it's a very high degree of transparency there. Nelson County students in Bardstown City Schools currently will be able to remain there under this agreement until they complete their educational careers or they choose to do otherwise. There have been concerns expressed. We've gotten a handful of phone calls. I know you as board members have gotten some contacts from the community where that was not understood. So we're going to do everything that we can, and we'll be communicating about this agreement and its details in a timely fashion over the next several months. In fact, over the next 13 years. That is the term of the agreement. But we want to make sure that everybody understands that any student that has a Nelson County address that is currently enrolled in the Bardstown City Schools will be able to finish their career or their time at Bardstown as they choose. The Nelson County Schools is not going to pluck any students out of that system. So in that regard, this agreement only affects students that have not been enrolled in Bardstown City Schools at all. If they're there, they get to stay. This only affects future decisions. I feel like the agreement is a win-win agreement because, as I said, it closes that gap. It brings more students into our system, and we know that I think our system is in better status to meet the needs of those students as they come into the system. So I think it's a good decision for kids, but I also think it's a good decision for you financially as a board because it does bring the revenue of the average daily attendance with those students as they come to us. It takes good care of students and families because the students that are in the Bardstown City Schools will stay there. As I said earlier, we're not ripping those students out, and I know folks have been concerned about that. It's a gradual change. Ultimately, it's just a handful of students each year by which that number will be reduced. That allows us some safety in not quickly overwhelming our physical capacity to bring kids in. This will be easy for us to accomplish given the size of our buildings, but it also provides some protection for Bardstown in that it does not catastrophically impact their budget in a short time frame. It's gradual, and they'll be able to budget for the changes over the course of time. Mr. Holzclaw and I have had lots of meetings and lots of conversations, and I think we've really counted on a strong and open relationship between the two of us to get to a point where we felt comfortable arguing at times. It's certainly not been without a few speed bumps along the way, but in the end, again, I feel like we've got a good, fair agreement that we can track and monitor and make sure it's working. And it also puts in place mechanisms that gives a little bit of wiggle room, again, to favor families and students, but also has very clear accountability and penalties associated if the accountability is not maintained.
And this starts in what year?
Starts with the next school year, and that first school year with the 15-16 school year, we're kind of calling a hold steady year. The number of Nelson County students in the Bardstown City Schools can remain constant in the next school year, and then it will begin to reduce by 15 students a year on that cap going forward. So in the 16-17 school year, we'll begin to see that number come down. One of the things that we've talked about early on was the fact that over the course of the last 5 years, the Bardstown City Schools had added an average of 28 students a year from the Nelson County Schools. So even in this first year, if you consider that if the average had continued, they would have gained 28 more of our students in the 15-16 school year. Even the hold steady is indicative of an opportunity for us to have students come into the district that would have gone to their district. So it even immediately begins to impact our bottom line, but again, offers some protection and gradual change for their budget as well.
Let me also ask a question. You may have said it, and I may not have heard it. You mentioned about that one of the goals all along has been not to have a negative impact on Nelson County address students who currently are enrolled in the Bardstown City Schools.
Correct.
If I remember correctly, the agreement also outlines what, I'll use the phrase household siblings. Meaning that if there's a child already there out of district who should be in Nelson County, and the family says, I still want my child to go there, which is all okay, and they have a younger sibling that would start maybe this fall, or maybe next year as a first grader, or whatever the case might be. If they're a household sibling, they also will have that ability to go there where older brother or older sister goes.
That's right. It does give highest priority to the siblings of currently enrolled students, and it does so in a way that allows for that wiggle room to kick in so that even if a small number of children due to that sibling rule exceed the cap for that given year, it essentially borrows against the cap for the following year, so that year to year, when you look at the whole term of the agreement, we maintain that progress, that trajectory toward the overall reduction of students and the number that's associated.
Well, that sibling, if that sibling doesn't want to follow the family's footstep, it can go to Nelson County.
Sure.
And we will welcome him or her with open arms.
Well, what I want to say, I want to thank you, Mr. Warren, for all you put into this, and Damon, I know helped you out on that. And I would also like to thank Bardstown Superintendent and the board for talking and not getting to a squabble, and I know there was a little bit, but I mean, that's with anything. Because, and where I'm coming from with this, myself personally, and as you know, I would have liked to seen, we could have took the money we had, and I would have liked to seen the numbers less. But we would have spent the money we have here that goes toward education and everything, just to prove a point to get a few more children. So the way it's handled, everybody agrees, it will be policed, and I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it.
I think, I mean, one of the goals that I think we've all had as a collective body, as a board, is, I mean, we believe in our school system, in the Nelson County schools, whether it's New Haven School, Boston School, Bloomfield Elementary, whatever school that maybe we've had children go through or maybe not go through. And we believe that we've got such a good product here that we want to make sure that we retain that good product. And to me, there were three things that we were really trying to do when we sat out. And that was to close the gap, not to eliminate it, but to approach a little bit more of an equity piece. That we did not want to have a detriment on the Bardstown City Schools. We did not want Bardstown City Schools all of a sudden to see a huge drop in enrollment, to have a financial hit that would be damaging to them as a school, because they've been a great partner through however many years that both of us have been in existence. And the other piece, we didn't want to hurt parents and the families. And I think those two pieces that you pointed out ensures that happens, that if you're currently a Bardstown student, you can continue to be that Bardstown student, even if you're out of district. If you should be going to New Haven or Nelson County High School or wherever, you can still continue there at Bardstown, and that household sibling piece, I think, ensures that as well. And there ended up being, to me, kind of the fourth thing of all this that really happened, and you hit on it there, Mr. Pate, the fact that between Dr. Orr, Superintendent Hoscall, I know board member Andy Stone from the city schools was instrumental in a lot of the discussions as well. We were able to do, as two board bodies who have vested interest in their own school system, we were able to do, through conversations and collaborating and a little bit of give and take, that a lot of other school districts haven't been able to do in the Commonwealth. I mean, we've all seen the newspaper articles where there have been hundreds of thousands, if not in excess of $1 million spent in litigation over something that it took us maybe a little bit of antacid medicine, maybe a little bit of, conversations back and forth and having meetings, but we did it without getting the lawyers involved, so to speak. I think that really goes a lot to say what we've been able to do as a community here. It kind of sets the tone for what I would hope the rest of the state would look at and say, this is the way to do it.
I've got some issues of, they're gaining 28 students a year. They've got something going on there that wants children to go there. That's what I want our district to be doing. It's not making these kids come back. I want them to want to come here, and that's the issue I have. I know with special ed, they've got something special going on there. They've got the teachers wearing the shirts, and I know we're starting to do that, and the autism shirts and things. And I just want kids to, when parents want to bring their kids to Nelson County, and I struggle with this. That's one of the biggest issues I've had since been on the board. And I didn't want to force those kids to come here. And I'm glad we worked it out where they are staying there. They've got a relationship with those teachers, with those aides, and they feel great about Bardstown. And I want them to feel great about Nelson County too. We got to continue working. We got to work on that. And we got to do more training for our teachers. And like you said, teachers is the hardest job here. They've got the hardest job I feel like in the county. And we've got to support them and get them the training, and get them the aids, and get them the need of what they need. And we got to work harder to get where they want to bring our kids here.
Well, that's the point to me. It's not the point of, I know a big thing is money and money, right? I understand that, but what I want people in this county to realize is Nelson County School District is a great school district for their child to be in with the great scores, and people look at scores, the bottom line's a score, whether we like it or not, but I want people to know how good we are, how great we are, as opposed to, maybe their scores aren't high, we'll put them someplace. I don't want them someplace else. I want them right here with us.
You want to be the district.
I want to be the special place for your child to grow. It's Nelson County School District.
I like that, district of choice.
Yep.
That's a good way to put it.
Yep. And this
We
is-
got to work hard to get there.
Well, we're not finished. We'll never be finished.
We've made huge
Thank
strides.
Mr. Orr for
Yeah, we'll never be finished.
all his hard work in this. And like I said,
So, on this, while we approved a memorandum of agreement several months ago, we also need a motion on this particular, the details of this non-resident student contract.
Since I opened the can
Yes.
of worms, let me finish this. I move that the Nelson County Board of Education approve the non-resident student agreement. Reservoirs 10.
So a motion by Ms. Berry
I will second.
and a second by Ms. Breeding.
No, I will just, Ms. Breeden was asking if this is the final version. I will tell you, this last edit came through about 10:15 this morning, so it's something that we were constantly,
That's what I read.
Yes.
yes, that's what you read at lunch, so we were constantly going through the
Yeah.
details.
Yes.
So,
So they have signed,
yes, sir, they voted to support the agreement and signed off on it at their meeting earlier today.
And I will say, I was over at Bardstown City Schools mid-afternoon, and one of their staff member happened to walk through the room I was in, and they mentioned to me that they had just approved it, and that they were very appreciative too of what we did collaborative with them as a board.
Save money.
Yeah. So we have a motion by Ms. Berry, a second by Ms. Breeding. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you all.
Great work.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 6, safe and caring environment. 6A, food service community eligibility provision.
It's a lot to say.
That was a mouthful, just like those taco burgers.
We're good.
They were very good.
Maybe you can call him sloppy burger. He kept wanting to say it was a sloppy Joe.
They look like sloppy joes. I mean,
It's not a sloppy Joe. Okay, well, I'm here to discuss what we briefly discussed at the work session earlier this month about the community eligibility provision and 4 of our schools that are eligible for it. I'm gonna strongly recommend that we're going to do that provision at all 4 schools. I do want to discuss with you all concerns that you might have when you look at the numbers of doing it that way. I still feel like it's completely self-sustaining if it's under good management. And if we get creative, and I know that we will, we're good, food service is good here in this district, and we can figure this out. I think you've seen a lot of information from Mr. Orr and from myself. I've worked with Tim, he was awesome, he worked with me about 3 or 4 days straight, reanalyzing the data, looking at it again, talking to KDE, saying, what do you guys think? Can we do this? Can we not do that? No one will say 100% for sure, because obviously we're not 100% for sure how this will turn out. I know one thing, it's going to be a service and a benefit we're going to give to the community. I feel like it can be self-sustaining and that it can last a long time. I feel like we can add to it in the future. Is it a gamble? I have to be honest and say yes. I can't promise anything. The numbers, Tim says all the time, numbers don't lie. They don't, but they can change if we make the effort to change them. So, do you guys have questions? You probably do. So what's the loss if we decide to go and let's say, hypothetically, let's say it does fail? I don't anticipate, but I always want to look at worst case scenario. Right. So if it does, what's the loss? All 4 schools, worst case scenario.
49,000,
That's it?
that's it. No growth, no growth, nothing changes. Not a single child eats that doesn't eat right now. All, just the 4 schools, okay? And that's an annual school year. If it changes and we get 5% growth, which when I talk to the counties that surround us, LaRue, I talked to Russell County, they're seeing this increase. 5% is being conservative. They're having more than that. Breakfast percentage is going up, it's skyrocketing, because it's a simpler way of feeding the kids. It gives them more incentive to come to school early in the morning.
Well,
Yeah, for
400
breakfast.
kids, 5% is 20.
Right, I mean, it's not like it's this number that can't.
And that's on the total population, not on the number of students that are actually eating right now
Right.
at that school.
Right.
If you figure it's 50%, 75% of the kids eating, it's even fewer than 20 on a population of 400 total enrolled.
And we've got great participation already. I mean, I just think, I've talked with my managers about it. I've gotten some of their opinions, and I mean, they all say, oh, they'll all eat. I mean, they'll eat, because a lot of times at breakfast, they're bringing in a Pop-Tart anyway. Well, now they can just, they are.
Yeah.
You know,
I was figuring it earlier today, and for a family that just has one child in the district that has to pay full price meals, if they eat breakfast and lunch, 174 days, $609. You know, if you've got 4 kids, they're right, you're right. I mean, 4
You don't
kids,
think of it all.
$2,400,
Yeah.
you know, it's
Of
just.
course, they don't pay for the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And, you know, and then who knows how much you spend if you have to go buy the food yourself and pack it. I mean, you're at least spending another $2 at least. I mean, you have to be.
Plus the time.
Time, effort.
What's the typical growth? Because you mentioned that LaRue and Russell, some of those others experienced growth. I mean, do you have an idea of what that typical percentage growth was?
Well, Russell County and LaRue County both said that without a doubt they went up 5% with lunch.
Easy.
Right. Russell County had an exact number for her growth in breakfast, and it was 24%. And then LaRue County, she said they're almost at 100% participation.
So, meaning that every student enrolled there is participating.
Right. I also joined in on a webinar with other states, and actually one of them was Metro Nashville, and then the other one was Portland, Oregon, just to sort of get what we're doing here and what we're doing way over there, doing the same programs. Portland, Oregon said that they had 50% lunch growth, and then Metro Nashville had 28% lunch and 39% breakfast. So just to kind of see now that it's nationwide, what does it do all over the place with the national regulations that we all have to meet? You know, does it still work? It first came out in 2010 when the rules and regulations weren't as strict as they are now. We didn't have the sodium restrictions. We didn't have the all whole grain restriction. I wanted to see now that the regulation is in full force, you know, are we still, you know, moving on up? Are we still getting participation? And I just think it's the key of saving the families the money and providing that service and that benefit to them that is going to get that, you know, that percentage up. I can't, obviously we won't change meals as they are. There will always be menu changes as we go along, but not the types of meals that we serve.
So this, to go back and make sure it's in my head right, so if it was flat, it sounds like the worst hit is just shy of $50,000 annually. But if I remember what you said at the work session, after 1 year, we can opt out.
You can opt out. I think that the difficulty will be, you know, giving it up. I think it's going to be easier if we go at it thinking we're going to stride through it and succeed, because I firmly believe that we can do that. Go ahead. Were you getting ready to say?
Yeah, I was getting ready to, well, go ahead and finish, but I don't want to interrupt.
Well, I just, you know, it gets to where, like I said, you have to be creative. Understand that $50,000 is the loss because of, or maybe a loss, you never know.
Mhm.
But the suspected loss based on the fact that the reimbursement rate changes, so it goes down, because of the identified student factor. Okay, then that number is also there taking away the student revenue, cash receipts that you would get for those paid meals. Okay, so you have to, those are the two factors there for that amount of loss. It's not taking into consideration what we get in non-program revenue. So a la carte sales, catering, adult meals. New Haven has one of the greatest adult meal participation in the district. They bring in great money selling to those adults. Obviously, there's not really very many places they can get to very quick. So those things considered, you know, the initial, when I consider non-program fund income for that $50,000, I can already take it down to $35,000 just based on what we did this past year at those 4 schools on non-program revenue. So even if that didn't change, but I think that's where you have to focus too. What more can we do? How much more involved can we get? How many, you know, what's the variety of things we can offer that can, you know, can be sold and still meet regulation and bring up that non-revenue or non-program revenue total.
LaRue County is, how many years, they started on it the first year, didn't
I don't know if she did or not, to be honest with you. I don't think so. I thought they came on fairly recently.
they? Well, I just know I went to a meeting and this was last year, and she said, I was told that was the second year, so this would be their third year.
It
may very well
It
be.
might have been in 4 year, maybe they didn't do it the first year, but after that, they backed in, because when I said, you do what? With weed, fruit, I said, well, how do you manage that?
Right.
Then she went ahead and told me,
Well, and you can do it, in increments as far as, like we're doing, like, you know, what I'm suggesting, we start with 4, then you can spread out.
Spread out.
And I think maybe that's probably what she did. I think she's all,
yeah, I think you're
district
right.
wide now.
I think you're right.
You know, I would like to see 4 schools at least, I would love to see it.
Oh, yeah.
And, but what's your plans on, you know, people word out to their parents that, you know, kids can eat free? Because a lot of kids are not going to mention the parent because of the no salt.
Right,
Whatever.
right. Well, KDE actually requires
Yeah,
that we
here.
put out a media release.
Right.
And we can make that, you know, as prototype-like as we wanted, or we could explain more in that, which I think would be good. We've got to, you know, let people know what's going on, because, you know, there's always that confusion. You've got elementary, you've got middle, you've got high school here, you've got preschool. It's not as easy as just having our K through 8s, like Boston and New Haven. We've got to explain to them that if you have a child here, we do it one way here, and if you have a child over here, we need you to do it a different way over here, and not, you know, to make sure that they're getting what they need out of either situation. So we do have to do a media release. We'll send home a letter to the household. The household that might have children at one school and then have them at the other that's not participating, they'll get 2 different letters. One telling them how to do it here, and one telling them how to do it over here. I'd be lying to you if I said to you that it's not going to be confusing at first, because my experience says that it is. I did this in Frankfurt before I came here. And we started out actually with one school and then added the next to go district-wide. It's just something we have to have patience with. And I mean, once you know, they get it, they get it. We need to be conscious about it. We need to communicate. Building administration needs to help with it. Central office administration, everybody just explaining what we need, because each piece of information is vital. What I need from one area and what you guys need from the other will be vital, so.
The
It'll
3
work.
C's, communicate, communicate.
Absolutely, because it's gonna be different, it's gonna be new.
Once you guys make a decision, obviously, we've got media folks here, they'll, I'm sure, start pretty quickly, let people know. But we'll work with the schools and the school principals, and they've got good communication systems that are already in place, but we'll work with them to support that communication and make sure everybody knows as clearly as possible. We've got all kinds of opening activities that get started where we have plenty of opportunities to interact with parents and make sure they're aware of what it looks like at each school. So we'll coordinate that through the summer and be ready to roll as that time gets here.
Well, I think it's great.
Yeah, I think it's a great initiative, I really do. Yeah, I
Yes.
think to give back,
About it.
it's that whole
So-
give back piece.
Yeah.
So
It
we're-
just makes it easier for parents. It does. It saves money, and it makes it easier to be able
And
to
those
send
little
your
tiny
child to the
steps.
school, and if they forgot their breakfast, go eat breakfast in school. You know.
I just want to be cool to eat at school. That's
Yeah,
all.
be
Right.
cool and eat at
Right.
school.
Well, you know, I'm glad you said that, because that is one of the big factors too that other food service directors talk about, is that, you know, the stigma is gone. That, you know, that school lunch stigma.
Yep.
It almost virtually disappears with all of this.
It does.
Because everyone is, we're already
Level
equal, but then
Yep.
when it comes to school lunch, we're equal, so.
So we know that some kids are just disadvantaged and they don't get free food, but now, you know, it takes that away, my feelings, and it treats that child just like anyone else. And I really appreciate all your hard work on this.
Well, really, when you get to a certain age, we all know kids can be pretty cruel at that middle age. And this way, there is no discrimination, no any. You go
Well,
through,
they don't-
you get your food, and
Or the embarrassment, or
Yes.
them not having the confidence, you know, to just, it doesn't matter at this point. We just,
that's right.
everybody's,
Won't
we're
matter.
all doing the same thing.
So this is going to be then for this coming school year, the 2015-16 school year, at 4 schools: Bloomfield Elementary School, Boston School, which is K through 8, New Haven School being K through 8, and then at Horizons Academy. And it's going to be those 4 this year, and of course, we can evaluate. Well, I always call it that we acknowledge the worst, shy of 50,000 at the worst could happen, and possibly loss, if we want to call it that. But we also, we plan for the best, that this is going to be a positive outcome.
Right.
And it may be that next year or the year after, there may be additional schools that get added on. We'll just kind of have to see as time progresses.
Every year, we'll
Okay.
reanalyze it every year, and yes, that's my recommendation for all four schools.
Okay,
So Ms. Pete's got it on her hand, we're gonna break even, right?
We will succeed in this venture.
We will, whatever it takes.
Don't put her on the spot like that, Mr. Norman. She's going to be positive, though.
We
Yeah,
will
what's
succeed.
it?
Yes, we will.
Yes,
That's all
I
positive.
have no doubt.
It'll be great.
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Page make a motion to
I'll-
start the CEP program at these 4 sites.
I'll second it.
And Mr. Norman is seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Appreciate your hard work
Thank
on
you.
all
Thank
this.
you.
Thank you.
Moving on into item 7 on the agenda, professional growth and effectiveness system. 7A is tenure, continuing contracts.
Okay, in a district, a teacher qualifies for a continuing contract under 3 conditions. 1, he or she has 4 consecutive years in the same district. 2, they transfer from another district with tenure and they successfully complete that first year of transfer. And the third situation is when they've been over a period of 6 years, 4 years in this district. There are a total of 15 teachers who meet that qualification in the district and have been recommended by their principals for a continuing contract for next year.
Motion.
Motion by Ms. Berry,
Second.
second by Mr. Tate. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 8 on the agenda, college career readiness. 8A is preschool program approval, which it would normally be Ms. Pyle, thankfully Mr. Beck.
Yes, so Ms. Powell was not able to be with us today. She has a decision paper before you today, asking that you approve the agreement, between the preschool submission that we submit to KDE. I believe you already have a copy of that. It is our preschool agreement with KDE.
In essence, this is more of a formality each year.
It's the standard program.
Motion by Mr. Pate,
Second.
Mr. Berry. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 8B, which is the Nelson County Early Learning Center Head Start Agreement.
That'll again be me. Ms. Powell has before you a decision paper on the approval of the agreement between the Nelson County Schools and the Central Kentucky Head Start.
Again, a project that we had year after year. We had discussions earlier in the year about the fact that because we're both federally funded programs, Head Start needs to serve their program, and then we can begin to enroll students in need after they have finished their program. And so that's something we do.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Pate,
Second.
second by Mr. Norman. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 8C, the master schedules for all of the Nelson County schools.
That will also be me. You have copies of all 10 schools' master schedules. We did move this year to put them on a uniform file so that you could better read those. All of the schedules meet the state mandated 1,062 hours within the course of our current 174-day schedule.
Motion by Ms. Berry,
I'll second.
second by Ms. Breeding. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
And 8D, instructional fees. So you're leaving us now?
Sir.
At our working session, we talked about the instructional fees for the elementary schools as well as the middle and high schools, and you should have before you a decision paper to accept those fees from the board. Did we change something?
I think we just changed the format. You've
Yeah.
seen it in a PowerPoint presentation.
Okay, I
before,
thought
it's
that's
like-
a little different, okay.
Yeah, it was on 2 slides in a PowerPoint. You paid attention, Ms. Berry. You get your gold
I
star.
know, thank you.
So we need a motion.
Make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Pate,
I'll second.
second by Ms. Breeding. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Appreciate it, Ms. Brown. Item 9, student stakeholder engagement. 9A is just comments. Any person wishing to address the board may do so by following these rules. Individuals representing themselves are limited to 3 minutes. Individuals representing a group are limited to 5 minutes. Please step up to the microphone, state your name and address, and if you represent a group, state the name of the group you are representing. So then we need a motion to adjourn regular session. Motion by Mr. Pate,
I second.
second by, we'll give it to Ms. Berry here.
Go
Ms.
ahead.
Miller.
Go ahead.
All in favor to adjourn regular session? Aye. Opposed? We will also be continuing an executive session per KRS 61.810 sub 1 sub F and KRS 156.557 sub 4 sub D for the purpose of the superintendent's summative evaluation. Motion by Mr. Pate.
Second.
Second by Ms. Berry. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So that motion passes. Whenever we come out of executive session, then we will be coming back into regular session to read out any actions that were taken during the executive, okay?